Calling to order this meeting of the San Diego Water District of Wednesday, March 17th, 2021. If we could have a roll call, please.
Yes, President Krantz. Board Member Hinsey?
Here.
Board Member Lyons?
Here.
Board Member Mosca?
Here.
Vice President Blakespear?
Here.
And President Krantz?
Here.
Record will show all members are present, and please note that San Diego Water District board members receive an independent stipend of $100 for convening the Water District meetings pursuant to San Diego Water District Resolution number 89-07.
Thank you. And if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, today there are no special presentations or proclamations, so moving on to oral communications.
There are none.
There are none, and we did not have a closed session tonight, so there is no report. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the posted agenda.
All right, there are items 8A through 8E on the consent calendar. I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
I'll second.
Board Member Hinsey?
Yes.
Board Member Lyons?
Yes.
Board Member Mosca?
Yes.
Vice President Blakespear?
Yes.
And President Krantz?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, on to the action items. We have received some good news in the form of $368,002.42 from the San Diego County Water Authority in their rate case with the Metropolitan Water District. So tonight's agenda item is to discuss that, and for that we will go to Finance Manager Kazungo.
Thank you, Board Member Krantz. And I have a very tiny presentation for you all. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I will share my screen. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Thank you, President Krantz and members of the board. In February, the San Diego County Water Authority Board of Directors announced a plan to distribute a rebate of $44.4 million to its 24 member agencies. I can move this forward. Hold on one moment while I move this. Okay, is that better? Okay.
That's better.
The funds are for legal damages and interest payments stemming from a decades-long case by the authority to compel the Metropolitan Water District to set legal rates and repay overcharges. Having won critical issues covering the 2011 to 2014 time period, the San Diego County Water Authority Board determined that its member agencies would receive the funds in proportion to their municipal and industrial water purchases during that time period. As shown on your agenda report attachment 1, the payments to the member agencies range from a low of approximately $5,000 payable to the Pendleton Military Reserve to $17.6 million to the city of San Diego, and the district's share being $368,002.42. Since the refund was tied to water purchases, Staff consulted with both industry attorneys and the city attorney's office on whether there were any legal limitations on how the funds could be spent. Staff considered allocating the funds to the rate stabilization reserve as a way to stabilize rates by potentially lowering the size of any future rate increases. We also considered allocating the funds to the Lake Hodges improvements or joint facilities improvements and thereby offset the costs for local water. And 3, we also considered offsetting capital project appropriations, which are the second largest expense for the district after water purchases. Having considered all three options, staff is recommending that with a water rate study currently under the way, the funds can be added to the rate stabilization reserve and factored into stabilizing and lowering the size of a potential rate adjustment that may occur at the conclusion of the study. As I said, this is a very tiny presentation, so that concludes the presentation and we're available to answer any questions you might have. And I'll stop sharing the screen.
Okay, thank you. Board Vice President Blakespear.
Thank you. I appreciate how brief that presentation was. Leaves plenty of time for chat. So my question is, how does the rate stabilization fund operate? Because there are some rate stabilization funds, my recollection of them from other boards is that they basically just sit there for a long time, but they're not actually being used so that we don't have to raise rates. So I just want to understand when we say it's going into the rate stabilization fund to equitably be distributed among all customers, what does that mean in terms of the operation of it?
We actually have used our rate stabilization fund, and as you indicated, that's exactly how it does work. The funds sit in a reserve, and then if we have any unexpected shortfall in revenue, or if in this particular case, what the staff is recommending is that if the next, at the end of the water rate study, if the recommendation is to increase rates, let's say by maybe 7%, then if the board decides that they would rather not pass on that big of an increase to the ratepayers, we would factor in the some funding from the rate stabilization reserve to reduce the amount of the rate increase, so that instead of a 7% increase, then maybe they would have a 6.5% or a 6% increase in rates rather than a 7%, because the money from the rate stabilization fund would then be used to offset the revenues that would have been coming in from customer charges and water use.
So is the I just have a few more follow-up questions on that, Chair. I appreciate it. Can I just keep going?
Yes.
Okay. So is our rate stabilization fund currently fully funded?
It is currently fully funded, yes.
So this would basically be adding an overage to it, and then we would be depleting it back down to the 100% funded level.
Correct. So we would pass on the information to the consultant that's currently working on the study and let them know that we've received this additional funding as part of our revenues, and for them to factor that into any future rate increases that they might be planning to recommend for us.
Okay, I mean, what I'm trying to get at is that I do agree with the bottom line, which is that we should use it to offset increases in rates. And I think there can sometimes be this desire to perpetually grow the rate stabilization fund, and then we never use it. It's basically like a shortfall in revenue would come from a decrease in water use, which we had several years back, but we still didn't touch it because we feel like we have to be in a dire crisis to ever use it. So I just want to make sure that your recommendation to put it into the rate stabilization fund, instead of just saying it's going to go to offset rate increases, is the right mechanism. Because if there's a more direct way to do that, that doesn't involve creating an overage and then having to deplete the reserve, because that step seems, I just feel, I want to really make sure that that's really the right way to do it.
I might jump in here. it's the right time for this money. It's coming in immediately before we actually doing the rate case study. So that information will be immediately entered into that rate case study that's going to be for the next 3 years, and that will be utilized immediately. So there is no keeping the monies on hold until the next rate study. So that will reduce the increases if there is any in the rate study immediately.
Okay, so just to confirm what you're saying is that you're not going to come back to us in a year and say, actually, we'd like to keep this in the rate stabilization fund because we'd actually like to have more money in that because you never know what's going to happen in the future.
It's going to be included as part of the rate study right now that we are conducting. And that's going to be taken into consideration when they evaluate the different options and how that affects the district's finances in addition to what the customers pass through would be.
Okay. Okay. Thanks very much.
And it does seem to me, can you confirm, please, that, you know, we are indeed retaining the authority to adjust these resources, move these resources as we deem necessary down the road if there is a decision that maybe we should redirect these particular resources somewhere else. It just seemed like a logical place for it to land at this particular time is in this spot. And I do remember tapping into that before, and the need in the rate adjustments through the rate study that we did to replenish that rate stabilization fund was you know, a factor. So in the end, this particular spot, I think will ultimately benefit the ratepayers pretty effectively. So, Board Member Mosca.
Yeah, so I just wanted to just note that I'm very excited that the litigation you know, has produced litigation that County Water Authority with MWD has presented us with a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel and some treasure here because it's been a long road and a lot has been expended on that litigation. The issues, fortunately, are starting to kind of coalesce, and there's less and less, and so hopefully there's going to be a time when we've resolved all the litigation with MWD, and maybe there's even more money that will come back to each district. I'll absolutely advocate for making sure that the money doesn't stay with County Water Authority, but that it's funneled back to the member agencies that are actually paying the increased rates for water. You know, and then in terms of the what we actually spend the money on, I think all of the above options that staff presented are actually reasonable and good options, and I could argue for every one of those, and I'll take your professional advice as to what to put it in. Obviously, Lake Hodges is a big ticket item that's coming up. We obviously, Mayor Blakespear and I sit on the joint committees with our joint facilities with Santa Fe Irrigation District. We have a lot of capital items coming up on those facilities. I actually just took a tour of the Badger facility for the second time, an inspection tour to see some of the work that's being done there. Lots of work being done. And so, you know, those and lots of stuff for the future too. And so that's going to continue to be some pressure on the district in terms of capital improvements there. But certainly, you know, this comes as was just said, this comes at a good time because, you know, we're going to be looking at the rates, the rate study and the rates for the future. And, you know, I would just note that the last time we increased those rates, you know, we made the bold decision of being much more aggressive on our retirements and paying it down, which I think is a proper decision. But remember that we actually, to be able to afford that and to not have sticker shock, and it was still like 6% increases, we had an asset that was sold in Cardiff, surplus property. We also adjusted some of the guidance that we have on reserves to be able to make that kind of fit. And so this comes at a good time, because if it wasn't there, then we probably to stay steady on our policies, retirement and everything else, we're probably looking at some decent increases in the middle of a pandemic. So this is actually good timing, as has been said. So I will absolutely move this motion that we accept the funds from the County Water Authority, and that we put it toward the rate stabilization fund.
All right, I will second that then. Board Member Lines? Can't hear you.
Chair Kearns, I was just going to second it, that's all. And you got there first.
Okay. Very good. And it is pretty amazing to see the results of this lawsuit finally, be something other than paying attorneys. I can't imagine the millions between both the Met and the County Water Authority, how many millions have been spent on attorneys. And it's, pretty amazing because they're both public agencies and they're using ratepayer money to litigate this. So it's my hope that it can be wrapped up and everybody can move on. So with that, Kathy.
Start voting.
Yep.
Board Member Hinsey,
Yes.
Board Member Lines,
Yes.
Board Member Mosca,
Yes.
Vice President Blakespear,
Yes.
President Kranz.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. There are no informational items. Are there any board member reports pursuant to AB 1234? Hearing none. General information, staff status reports, or general manager update?
Yes, since this is my first meeting as an interim general manager, I just want to say that I appreciate the opportunity to be in this seat, and I look forward to work with all of you in order to serve the city of Encinitas residents and to provide the excellent service that our customers expect from us. One of the hot topics nowadays is the water bill delinquent accounts that has been going around between all water agencies around in California. Actually, the California Water Board has conducted a survey and they came up with $1 billion in household water debt across the state. And they have came up with 1.6 million households that have water debt, which means that the 12% of the household of the state have water debt. The good news about our district is we have been steady with the number of delinquent accounts. The delinquent accounts out of the 11,800 customers or plus that are in the district, we have only 62 accounts that are delinquent, which is less than 1% of the number. And also the amounts that total delinquent amount that will have required a shutdown is less than $40,000, which is less than 1% of the year-to-date water sales revenue of 7.7 million. We continue to work with our customers and we invite them for do a payment plan in addition to any other utility assistance programs that we are aware of. Our website has these water utility assistance programs that are currently available. Recently, the new American Rescue Plan included $500 million for low-income household drinking water and wastewater emergency assistance. I believe the $500 million is actually nationwide, so I don't really know what part of that California will be getting. But as you can see, that will not be enough to address the state of California debt on water bills. But we are in good shape. We have not seen an increase in the number of delinquent accounts during this pandemic. So I just want to share that with you and have you ask any questions if you do have any.
Board Vice President Blakespear.
Thank you. Could you share with us the legal framework around shutting off delinquent accounts?
Mary, maybe you can jump on that about the 80 days.
Yeah, the district does have a shut-off policy, which usually takes over almost 90 days from start to finish. And during that time, we're working with the customer to advise them of their options. We're usually allowing them to pay as much or as little as they're able to afford. But we do have a discontinuation of service policy that we follow through Currently, that is on hold per the governor's executive order from last year in, I believe it was in April, where we cannot shut off anybody during the pandemic. And so right now we're providing water to customers, whether they are able to pay or not. And the hope is that once the governor's or executive order is lifted, we will continue to work with these customers so that we don't shut off their water and continue to receive payments from them until they are caught up. Typically, we don't have even the 62 delinquent accounts. We usually have, I think we used to have maybe about between 10 and 12 at any given time. And usually we would work with them and they would end up paying whatever they owed because we're always willing to take some kind of payment.
So, you know, what you're saying there is that we've had like a 5-fold increase in the number of delinquent accounts. So, and that, I mean, so what is our policy or are we, what would be our approach, or do we need to set a policy if they're not able to work out a payment plan? I mean, you know, have you looked at other agencies or how they're handling that?
Actually, we have looked at what other agencies are doing. Some agencies are actually using flow restrictors, which basically reduces the water that you're receiving from your faucets down to a tiny trickle. So it would take you a long time to even fill a glass of water. None of the agencies are able to shut off anyone at the present time while the governor's executive order is in place. But they are using that as a mechanism to hopefully prod people into continuing to make payments. Like us, they are also working with individual customers and referring them to different services and assistance programs that they are aware of, but no one is shutting anybody off for water other than maybe doing the flow restriction, which is a method that we have not had to use. And we hope we don't have to use that.
Okay. Well, from my perspective, just, you know, keep us informed about this. I think it makes sense in some ways that you would reduce the amount of water. Like somebody shouldn't be watering a lot of outdoor yard if they're not able to pay their water bill. But presumably these are more likely apartments, and so it's not an abusive situation. It's really a true need situation. So, you know, to the extent you need authority for a compassionate response, but that's also reasonable, you know, certainly, I mean, I'm sure you know, but come back to the board.
Thank you, board member. We will definitely be coming back with if we have any suggestions, or if we feel like this is getting out of hand and something needs to be done, we will definitely come back to the board for direction.
Okay, seeing no other raised hands and having arrived at the end of our agenda, this meeting is adjourned until the next regular board meeting, which will be held on April 28th, 2021. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
President Kranz, I'm just going to remind everyone to use the same link for the city council meeting. And for all of the attendees that are already online, the city council meeting does start at 6 o'clock. If you are on hold for the 6 o'clock meeting for item 12A, we will be reducing speaking time from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. So you'll have a little bit of time to plan accordingly.
Yeah, but based on the large number of speakers.
Yes, based on the large number of speakers. We have approximately 28.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.